Imagine being trapped in a small pocket of a dense, dark forest. You're surrounded on all sides by the enemy. You have no food, you have no water, you have run out of medical supplies. There are 550 of you, but every hour that number drops. Snipers are picking you off, machine guns rattle constantly. But the worst part isn't the enemy. The worst part is that your own army, the people supposed to save you, don't know where you are. In fact, they think you are the enemy. Suddenly, the sky explodes. American artillery shells begin to rain down on your position. It is friendly fire, and it is slaughtering your men. You have no radio. You have no runners. Your only line of communication to the outside world is a small crate containing 3 pigeons. This is the terrifying true story of the lost battalion of World War I. And their survival didn't depend on a general or a tank. It depended on a single bird with one eye and a shattered leg who refused to land until his message was delivered. This is the legend of Cher Ami. The date is October 2nd, 1918. It's the height of the Meuse-Argonne offensive, one of the deadliest battles in American history. Major Charles Whittlesey leads the 77th Division into the Argonne forest in France. His orders are simple: push forward, take the Charleville Mill Road, and hold the position. Whittlesey is a serious man, a lawyer from New York City turned soldier. He leads his men forward, believing that French and American units are supporting him on his left and right flanks. They fight hard. They break through the German lines and reach their objective. They dig in on a steep slope. But soon, Whittlesey realizes something is terribly wrong. The silence on his flanks is deafening. The supporting units never made it. They stalled or were pushed back. Whittlesey and his men had advanced too far, too fast. They were now completely cut off. German forces quickly realized the mistake. They swarmed in behind the Americans, cutting the communication wires and sealing the trap. The 550 men were now an island in a sea of enemies. The next morning, the reality set in. They were under siege. The Germans attacked from the front, the flanks, and the rear. They shouted taunts from the woods, asking the Americans to surrender. Whittlesey refused. The conditions were horrific. It was cold and raining. The men dug shallow funk holes to hide from the grenades and mortar shells. They had no food, only the emergency rations they carried. Water was available only from a nearby stream, but the stream was covered by German machine guns. To drink meant to die. Whittlesey needed to send a message to headquarters. He needed to tell them his position. He wrote a message on a small piece of onion skin paper, put it in a canister, and attached it to the leg of a carrier pigeon. He released the bird. The bird flew up and was immediately shot out of the sky by German marksmen. The Germans knew about the pigeons. They had ordered their soldiers to shoot every bird on sight. Whittlesey sent a second bird, shot down. He sent a third, shot down. Hope was fading, but the worst was yet to come. On October 4th, the American artillery commanders, trying to support the push, calculated firing coordinates. But their maps were wrong. They believed Whittlesey's unit was still behind the German lines. At noon, a barrage of heavy American shells began to fall. But they didn't hit the Germans. They landed directly in the center of the lost battalion's position. It was a massacre. Trees shattered, raining deadly wood splinters onto the men. The ground shook. Men were screaming, killed by their own country's weapons. Whittlesey was desperate. He had to stop the shelling. He had one pigeon left. His name was Cher Ami, which means dear friend in French. He was a black-check cockbird, trained by the U.S. Army Signal Corps. Whittlesey wrote a frantic message. It was brief and chilling. "We are along the road parallel to 276.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it!" He clipped the message to Cher Ami's left leg. He held the bird for a moment, perhaps whispering a prayer. Then he threw him into the air. Cher Ami circled once to get his bearings. As he rose above the tree line, the German soldiers saw him. Hundreds of rifles pointed at the small bird. Machine guns opened fire. The air was filled with lead. A bullet struck Cher Ami. He was hit in the chest. The impact blew him sideways. He plummeted toward the ground. The American soldiers watching from the trenches groaned. Their last hope was dead. But then a miracle happened. Just before hitting the ground, Cher Ami spread his wings. He caught an updraft. He flapped, struggling for altitude. He was bleeding, confused, and in agony, but his instinct to return home was stronger than the pain. He flew back up into the storm of bullets. Another bullet struck his right leg, shattering the bone and nearly severing it. The message canister was hanging by a single tendon. Another bullet grazed his eye, blinding him on one side. Broken, bleeding, and half-blind, Cher Ami flew. He flew for 25 miles. He flew over the German lines, over the cratered no-man's land, over the support trenches. It normally takes a healthy pigeon about 45 minutes to cover that distance. Cher Ami did it in 25 minutes. He was flying for his life and for the lives of 194 men. At the division headquarters, a signal corps officer heard the bell of the Pigeon coop ring. He went to check. He found a pigeon lying on the floor of the coop. It was a bloody mess. It was gasping for air. One leg was hanging by a thread. One eye was gone. There was a hole in its breastbone. But attached to the dangling leg was the silver canister. The officer opened it. He read Major Whittlesey's desperate plea. "For heaven's sake, stop it!" The officer ran to the artillery commander. The coordinates were immediately corrected. The shelling stopped. Back in the forest, the sudden silence was the most beautiful sound the survivors had ever heard. The Germans, confused by the sudden shift in American artillery, pulled back. The line held. A few days later, the 77th Division broke through the German lines and reached the lost battalion. Of the 550 men who walked into the forest, only 194 walked out unharmed. But they were alive, and they knew exactly who had saved them. Cher Ami became the hero of the 77th Division. Army medics worked desperately to save his life. They couldn't save his leg, so they carved a small wooden one for him. When he returned to America, he was treated like a general. General John J. Pershing, the commander of the American Expeditionary Forces, personally saw the bird off as it boarded the ship home. Cher Ami was awarded the Croix de Guerre with a palm oak leaf cluster by the French government, one of the highest military honors for valor. He died in 1919 from his wounds, less than a year after his flight, but his body was preserved. Today, you can still see him. He stands on display at the Smithsonian National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C., just a few feet away from Sergeant Stubby. He stands on one leg, head high, a small bird who carried the weight of 200 lives on his wings. Cher Ami wasn't just a messenger. He was the ultimate symbol of duty. He took a second chance at flight when he should have fallen, and in doing so, he became immortal.